Military units come to attention. Present on. 2. I wish to welcome everyone here to the rededication ceremony of our town's parks, squares, and monuments. It's most appropriate that we meet today in front of this monument that was erected in honor of all veterans who served in any and all of the wars, and to those of them that gave their lives so that we enjoy the freedom we enjoy today. And before I will go any further, I want to remind everyone present to keep in their thoughts the brave men that waded ashore in the Normandy beaches on June 6, 1944. And a week from this day, next Sunday the 6th, is the 60th anniversary for those who laid down their lives and are buried in the cemeteries in France, in Belgium, and the Low Countries. I'm going to ask our Veterans Agent Paul Farrell to speak a few words. Paul?
We are assembled here to pay tribute to all our departed comrades, to all those who placed their bodies as a barrier between any and all foes, in any and all wars, conflicts, or crisis in this nation. As a result of their effort, the flag of this nation still flies over a land of free people in this great and undivided republic.
Thank you very much, Paul. I'd like to ask the commanders of the several veterans units to place the wreath at the foot of the monument. Gentlemen, proceed. Now I'd like to ask Beth Dalton to come forward and read a poem to us. It was written by her uncle, Ron Eaton, who was a naval aviator that was shot down.
Pilots were needed for this night, just for taxi, not for flight. The plane I manned was number 7. The plane ahead was number 11. Start the props soon was heard. With the signal, I concurred. From man to man, I was passed. At my final spot, I was at last. Cut your engine, hold your brake. This was done with rapid rate. I was told she wasn't charmed, so I kept my brakes low. Very soon the man returned. He looked at me with concern. The night was dark, but who would think my plane would roll into the drink. Without delay, the plane did sink, and soon the carrier ship was indistinct. In my mind there came in sight my girl's face like a shining light. Up swam I from the mess, then pulled the toggles of my Mae West. This was done with much success, and CO2 went in my vest. Man overboard, the ship's horn blast. Not long before had the ship's crew posted. The plane high above circled round. This kept my hopes I'd be found. I tried at once to use a flare. The first one gave me a slight despair. Boy, boy, lucky me, I had a pair. The second attempt lit quite fair. The waves above were rising steep, and the sea below was plenty deep. With huge lights the ship would seek, one would hit me and then retreat. Planes still searched from the sky. I held my vest light way up high. As the tin can came nearby, to myself I heaved a sigh. With all my might I did shout, having every hope they would pull me out. A yellow light and then a boat. I thank God I was still afloat.
Thank you very much, Bev. That reading will conclude our ceremony here. Is this on? Right?
Yep.
Yeah. All the units. Form up at the flagpole. Come to attention.
It's good.
Present. On. Two. Order. On. Parade. Rest. Ask the high school band to play our national anthem.
It's good. Present. On.
Order. On.
Order. On. Howdy.
Order. On. I'll ask the Reverend Grimley to come forward and offer a benediction.
Please join me in prayer if you would.
Uncover. Oh.
Eternal God, we come before you today with thankful hearts. We thank you for the freedoms we have in this nation. The freedom of democracy, the freedom of speech, the freedom to worship without restriction. Be with us now as we honor those who have given their lives that we might enjoy these precious liberties. Comfort those especially who have lost a son or a daughter, a mother, a father, a sister or brother over the last year serving in our military. Help them to know that we appreciate their sacrifice. Lord, we've also come to honor the living today. We honor those who served in this nation over the years, the many in uniform here today. those presently serving in foreign lands in our nation. Help them to realize as well, we appreciate their sacrifice. It is important to us. It serves purpose. Lord, be with us now as we continue with our proceedings. Amen.
Come up. I'd like at this time to ask anyone that's available to cover these graves over here for the time being. I want to welcome everyone here. Today we honor roughly 1,300 veterans who are buried in this cemetery. And it's well that we do. Because if it were not for them, we perhaps would not be standing here ourselves. I also want to remind all those present here that next Sunday, June 6th, is the 60th anniversary of the D-Day invasion of Europe. And there are well over 25,000 men buried in France, Belgium, Holland, and the Low Countries that suffered and died and bled for us during that invasion. And I ask that we also remember them. I would like at this time to ask our State Representative Jim Maselli to come forward and offer a few of his thoughts. Representative Maselli.
We come here today to pay tribute to every single American service member who has died in defense of this great country. Some died on American soil to defend the Union. Others died overseas on foreign land to protect us back at home. For every serviceman that lays down his or her life, as a nation, we grieve. As mothers, fathers, sons and daughters, brothers and sisters, we grieve. In that sometimes overwhelming grief, we must not forget the greatness of those that were taken from us and the greatness of the cause they fought and died for. They did not die in vain. They died for a cause they believed in, freedom. As a nation, we stand together as one to say thank you. Your life and your sacrifice will not be forgotten. Today is a sacred day. It is a day we set aside as a nation to honor those whose sacrifices have made possible every freedom and every breath we enjoy. Throughout history, our men and women have been called upon time and time again to stand up and fight against those that threaten our freedom and the freedoms of those less fortunate and more vulnerable than us. Today, we also commemorate the veterans of World War II. This past Saturday, May 29th, the National World War II Memorial was dedicated by a grateful nation. The World War II Memorial is the first national memorial dedicated to all who served during the Second World War. The memorial established by the American Battle Monuments Commission honors all military veterans of the war, the citizens in the home front, the nation at large, with a high moral purpose and idealism that motivated the nation's call to arms. The Second World War is the only 20th century event commemorated on the mall's axis. At home, we don't see the daily atrocities and horrific situations service people see when at war. We owe a debt of gratitude not only to the soldiers and the family of those that died, but we also owe those that return scarred from battle. We also owe a tremendous debt to all of the people who lie here today, the people who gave of their time, their lives, went over to a foreign soil and left their families, some to return, some not to return. We must not forget them. And until you're over there, a lot of the young men today have found it's not all glory, it's hell. And you know, we must remember, especially those service people who are in Afghanistan, Bosnia, Korea, Iraq. So on behalf of the Commonwealth and a grateful nation, I would like to say thank you to all those that answered that call and served our great country. I would also like to remember and thank our service people currently serving in the Middle East and all over the world. Your service is greatly appreciated and recognized us by today and every day from now on. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Representative Maselli. I'd now like to introduce Senator Brewster.
Thank you and good morning. And thanks to all of those who have brought us together here today for one of the most noble purposes that we as Americans can share. The purpose of recognizing each and every person who has placed upon themselves the uniform of our country and raised their hand to an oath to defend the things that we hold dear in our lives. And today to think about the fact that in so many times, in so many places, those folks have never failed to answer the call, have never failed to take up arms, have never failed to take any sacrifice that was necessary in order to promote not only freedom for those of us within the borders of the United States, but to try to extend freedom and liberty throughout the globe. Like many of you, over the past few days, I've been thinking a lot about the World War II Memorial in Washington. And I watched on Saturday as we saw incredible services to commemorate the greatest generation and what they have meant in the history of this country. They were veterans like all of the others that we recognize today. They did their service. They rebuilt America. They rebuilt much of the free world. But as we think about them, I was thinking about a different time. A time in this country when the entire country was committed to the effort of that conflict. Where we had folks building victory gardens and rooftops and backyards, melting metal objects in order to have sufficient resources for the people that were on the front lines to be able to wage the war against tyranny and oppression. And thought about the commitment of the entire country, each and every person in each and every neighborhood, in each and every city and town. And thought about the fact that that was a different time. Today we are as well engaged in a different conflict. A conflict that takes us to other parts of the world with enemies that oftentimes are hard to identify and still harder to combat. And yet once again, brave men and women from our country have put themselves in harm's way. And so while we may not be required of the same sacrifice that those who came before us were in this effort, we may not have to sacrifice our oil and gas resources, or to grow a victory garden, or to go without other necessities of life in order to promote that effort. There is one thing that can and should unify us. And that one thing is the thought that those folks who today are serving us in Afghanistan, in Iraq, in the Middle East, and throughout the four corners of the globe share the same commitment and purpose as those who have gone before that we have been thinking about with the memorial in Washington. And so as we stand here today, there is one thing we can do. There is a commitment that we can make, and it doesn't require a tremendous amount of sacrifice. That commitment is to ensure that we appreciate and thank and support the men and women who wear the uniform of our country, no matter where they serve. And that is the thing that, in my opinion, can unify us once again as a nation, to have no doubt that we should stand behind them each and every day in every possible way. That is one of the things that we can do on this Memorial Day and all of the days that will follow to ensure that we maintain our solemn responsibility as Americans to stand by those who defend us. I pray that we will, each and every day. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Senator Tarr. I'd like to introduce the Board of Selectmen. Selectman Ray Lepori, Selectman Frank West, Selectman Mike Newhouse, Selectman Suzanne Sullivan, and the Chairman of the Board of Selectmen, Michael McCoy, who will say a few words.
Good morning, everybody, and thank you, Commander. Before I start my part of the program, let me read a letter to you. It is addressed to Mr. Woods, Principal, and it's from the Department of the Air Force. Dear Mr. Woods, I would like to take this opportunity to thank music teacher, Miss Anita DeLulo, Performing Arts Liaison, Miss Lorraine Kale of the Performing Arts Department, the Wilmington Marching Band, and the Wilmington School Department for collecting goods for our troops in Afghanistan and Iraq. The young men and women from Wilmington High School accomplished this feat on their own by performing a series of concerts and asking for donated items for the Gulf soldiers. They collected 10 crates loaded with goods for our servicemen and women. Our armed forces are very proud of these young Americans. I also understand that there were some personal letters written as well. I hope this dialogue continues and the students can better understand the hardships of our soldiers are enduring and how comforting it is to receive a letter from the home front. Please pass this letter to your students, to the school committee, expressing our heartfelt thanks for their generosity in making the lives of our troops more comfortable during these trying times. And it's signed by Vincent R. Snyder, Colonel of the United States Air Force. You hear about the negative things that some young adults do. Not often enough do you hear about the positive. Here is something positive. These items were picked up by the Air Force personnel from Hanscom Air Force Base in Bedford, Massachusetts. These items collected were put on a military cargo transport plane. This plane landed in late February of 2004 in Baghdad Airport. All of these items were distributed to American soldiers in Iraq. Not only do these kids play great music, they went above and beyond the call of duty collecting things to comfort our soldiers overseas. On behalf of the Wilmington Board of Selectmen and a grateful community, let's give a great round of applause to our Wilmington Wildcat High School Band. What is Memorial Day? Memorial Day was an executive order signed by President Abraham Lincoln almost 140 years ago. It was a presidential order so that the citizens would remember the brave men and women who paid the supreme sacrifice to keep our nation free and strong. Today, almost 140 years later, that great tradition carries on. We need to be forever grateful to all the veterans who fought in all the wars defending our freedoms and our nation. To all the veterans who came back alive, we thank you. We cannot imagine what you endured in battle because we all know war is hell. You deserve our utmost respect today and all of our tomorrows. We thank you for giving all of us a wonderful freedom and a fulfilled life. We also need to acknowledge the families who lost a loved one. We are forever grateful and we salute you as a community. In closing, to honor the sacrifice and valor of our young men and women from Wilmington who are serving in the military in this country, the Mideast, and throughout the world, the board presented their family members with a Brewster banner. To date, we have honored 62 of our local military service personnel at selectmen meetings. Those brave young soldiers deserve our deepest respect and appreciation and our heartfelt prayers for the continued safety and speedy return. We are not only a grateful nation, we are a proud small community. Thanking these young men and women. On behalf of the Wilmington Board of Selectmen, God bless all you veterans, your family members, and God bless the town of Wilmington.
I would be remiss in my obligation if I did not introduce to you the town manager, Michael Tyra, and our veterans agent, Paul Farrell, who stands here beside me. Shortly, will read the roll call of the fellows that were killed in action. I'd like a representative from the Seabees and a representative from the American Legion to come forward and assist the Boy Scouts to present the wreath. You got no Boy Scouts? I know where the wreaths are. I know where the guys are. I saw them. Proceed. And at this time, I'd like to ask the high school band to play a presentation for us. Thank you very much. And now, I'd like to ask Buddy Gormley to come forward to read for us the Gettysburg Address.
Fourscore and 7 years ago, our fathers brought forth on this continent a new nation conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. Now, we are engaged in a great civil war, testing whether that nation or any nation so conceived and so dedicated can long endure. We are met on a great battlefield of that war. We have come to dedicate a portion of that field as a final resting place for those who here gave their lives, that that nation might live. It is altogether fitting and proper that we should do this. But, in a larger sense, we cannot dedicate, we cannot consecrate, we cannot hallow this ground. The brave men, living and dead, who struggled here, have consecrated it far above our full power to add or detract. The world will little note, nor long remember, what we say here, but it can never forget what they did here. It is for us, the living, rather, to be dedicated here to the unfinished work, which they who fought here have thus far so nobly advanced. It is, rather, for us to be here dedicated to the great task remaining before us, that from these honored dead we take increased devotion to that cause for which they gave the last full measure of devotion, that we here highly resolve that these dead shall not have died in vain, that this nation, under God, shall have a new birth of freedom, and that the government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth.
For all of us, thank you very much, buddy. And now, I'm going to ask Beverly Chisholm to come forward. She has a poem that she'd like to read to us. Beverly?
Memorial Day is a solemn day set aside to acknowledge the loss of so many precious men and women whose lives were cut short in the service of our country. Either in a bloody battlefield or in the ordinary course of performing their duties, we choose to protect our future with complete dedication to this country's founding principles. The attacks of September 11, 2001, plunged America into another battle for freedom. We again have asked our armed forces, including our reserves, to protect us from the horrors of terrorism. And as they do their job, our men and women in uniform count on their families and neighbors, like you all here today. This is a time of hardship for military families. Some have been separated from their loved ones for quite a while because of long deployment. All of America is grateful for the sacrifices current military families are making. I know that everyone here joins me in thanking those veterans because it was standing here testifying. Those veterans served down their lives, and those who have quickly endured the memories of conflicts past, and Americans. The men and women who protect our liberty and freedom that we too often take for granted as we pursue our dreams and aspirations in this country, love of all America. We know that thank you is not enough, and we pledge to be faithful to you as you have been to us, in keeping freedom's light shining through our many dark hours. It is that light that leads the way to bringing peace to us at home and throughout the world. To America's veterans who are gathered here today, you are the best of the best. If you've ever wondered just how important our veterans are, just listen to the words of Charles Providence. It is the soldier, not the reporter, who has given us the freedom of press. It is the soldier, not the poet, who has given us the freedom of speech. It is the soldier, not the campus organizer, who has given us the freedom to demonstrate. It is the soldier, not the lawyer, who has given us the right to fair trial. And it is the soldier who salutes the flag, who serves the flag, and whose coffin is draped by the flag, who allows a protester to burn the flag. God bless each of you here today. God bless our veterans, and God bless America.
Thank you very much, General. I'm sure we all thank Beverly very much. I especially like that last section about, I think the best way to put it is, who does what? When the time comes to get something done, it's the people in the front that enable us to achieve those several goals. And one of them, the most important one, is to stand here in the sunlight in freedom, the liberty to do the things that we choose to do for a change. Thank you. I would like now the commanders of the various and several veterans units to come forward to the northeast side of the flagpole to return the salutes as our Veterans Agent Paul Farrell calls the roll of honor.
William E. Butterworth, Charles L. Smith, John Edwardson Jr., James W. Sedgwick, Joseph L. Ring, Max Jacobs, Wesley W. Colburn, Herbert A. Mitchie, Walter R. Joy, Elmer M. Drew, Benedict Lip, John A. Martins, Arthur L. Albert A. Ayotte, Joseph Cochran, Francis F. Babine, William F. Cadlick, Wesley W. Wicks, Stephen J. Pilcher, Walter F. Goss, Chester L. Garrity, Henry T. Fitzgerald, John L. Berrican, Herbert F. Johnson Jr., Antonio Gagnon, Arthur M. Starr, William A. Buck, Ronald D. Eaton, Conlon J. Buchanan, Michael Davis, William H. Connaughton, John J. Fullerton Jr., Robert W. Parent, Richard W. Welch, John A. Rich, Ralph Valorian. Comrade Commander, end of roll call.
Comrade, Commander of the VFW Rifle Team, fire a volley of 3 shots, followed by a cannon volley.
Present. Huh. Order. Huh. Ready.
Now I'd like to ask Reverend Grimley to come forward and offer a benediction. Cover.
Before that benediction, I wanted to share the words of a song by Toby Keith. This was written a few days after the September 11th terrorist attacks. He says, "My father was a soldier in the army in the 50s and always flew a flag to show his patriotism. I just lost him in a car wreck 6 months before the attacks took place. So I wrote my feelings down, and here are his feelings. And I trust our feelings as well. Well, if you ask me where I come from, here's what I tell everyone. I was born by God's dear grace in an extraordinary place where the stars and the stripes and the eagles fly. It's a big old land with countless dreams. Happiness ain't out of reach. Hard work pays off the way it should. Yeah, I've seen enough to know that we got it good, where the stars and the stripes and the eagle fly. There's a lady that stands in the harbor for what we believe, and there's a bell that still echoes the price that it costs to be free. I pledge allegiance to the flag, and if that bothers you, well, that's too bad. But if you've got pride and you're proud to do, hey, we can use more like me and you, where the stars and the stripes and the eagle fly. Yes, there's a lady that stands in a harbor for what we believe, and there's a bell that still echoes the price that it costs to be free. No, it ain't the only place on earth. It's the only place I prefer to love my wife and raise my kids. Hey, the same way my daddy did, where the stars and the stripes and the eagle fly. Where the stars and the stripes and the eagle fly. Join me in prayer. Lord, as we close our time together, we acknowledge that there is no such thing as a good war. And yet, as tragic as it is for precious lives to be lost, sometimes war is inevitable to protect the innocent, to serve the purpose of justice. Lord, we don't come here today to dialogue about whether we should be in Iraq or not. The reality is that we are there. And in your grace and in your wisdom, we ask your hand upon this transition to a new government. Put in positions of leadership in that nation those that you desire to lead. Protect our troops, the coalition forces. Give President Bush and our national and military leaders your wisdom in how to proceed in that country and each and every country we're involved in. Lord, we ask also for your protection upon this nation, especially with the recent information about other possible terrorist attacks this summer. Give our intelligence agencies the wisdom to discover and then thwart those possibilities. Help us not to take our freedoms for granted, but to remain steadfast in prayer, earnest in striving for peace, and supportive of those serving our country. Lastly, Lord, draw us as a nation back to our Judeo-Christian morals and values, that your hand of blessing, your hand of protection would continue to be upon us. And on this day of remembrance, help us to remember our constant need for you in our personal lives, our constant need for you in the life of our nation as well. We ask all these things in the name of Christ the Lord. Amen.
Cover. Thank you very much, Reverend Grimley. All flag units, attention. Dismiss. File out in the street and file in to pass the reviewing stand.